Harry is as erratic and unstable as a lot of us have been speculating.
It was supposed to be a peaceful escape, a $14 million Montecito mansion nestled in the hills of Santa Barbara, offering ocean views, lemon groves, and total privacy. But behind those hedges, the Sussexes' American fairy tale is cracking wide open. And this time, it's not tabloid gossip or royal family drama that's dragging them into the spotlight. It's the local government. Yes, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are now facing a formal investigation by Santa Barbara County officials, and the warning they received was anything but subtle.
Harry wasn't even there for Archie's 6th birthday. There's clearly trouble in paradise, and she's trying to cover it up, and she thinks that we are stupid enough to fall for that crap.
You know, if you didn't know the story behind the whole lot, you'd think, did he take their own photographer with them?
I won't warn you again. That message came straight from Doss Williams, a no-nonsense county supervisor who just flagged their estate for a land use compliance review. Translation? They may have broken the law, and not just once. What's unfolding now is a full-blown scandal, grounded not in media spin or royal rivalry, but in zoning violations, sustainability hypocrisy, and the mounting outrage of their own neighbors.
You think the Princess of Wales would have deliberately worn a Victoria Beckham outfit to show some kind of
I think
sign?
she would have done, yeah. She certainly did.
Welcome to Montecito, where the dream of privacy has turned into a legal nightmare. To understand how it came to this, we need to rewind. Because if you only knew Meghan and Harry from their polished interviews or their Instagram-ready photo shoots, you'd think they were building a humble life of organic gardening and yoga in the California sun. But that image, the wholesome orchard, the ethically sourced breakfast bowls, the pastel filters, was always part of the brand. What neighbors and insiders are now revealing tells a very different story. There have been whispers for months, celebrity events happening behind closed gates, camera crews arriving without permits, and commercial shoots masquerading as family content. These aren't just petty neighbor complaints, they're legal triggers. Zoning codes in Montecito are strict for a reason. It's a protected area, a retreat for the ultra-wealthy who pay for peace and discretion, not drone flyovers and red carpet chaos. And when a couple signs multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, Spotify, and now American Riviera Orchard, but uses their private residence as a backdrop for it all, that's where it crosses the line from domestic bliss to potential business misuse.
Anything quite so strange and bizarre of Prince Harry on a doorbell camera, walking around knocking apparently randomly for friends in a street in West London.
I felt it was bizarre.
But here's what makes this even more explosive. The timing. Sources close to the county office reveal that the investigation was triggered not by one massive violation, but by a cascade of smaller infractions that painted a disturbing pattern. Security footage from neighboring properties allegedly shows delivery trucks arriving at odd hours. Not Amazon packages, but professional equipment rentals, catering vans for events that were never publicly disclosed. And most damning of all, construction crews working on mysterious landscaping projects that neighbors say looked nothing like typical garden maintenance. One longtime Montecito resident, speaking anonymously, described the transformation this way. When they first moved in, it felt like any other wealthy family settling into the neighborhood. But over the past year, it's been like watching a private home turn into a film studio, complete with the traffic, the noise, and the disruption that comes with it. The evidence was mounting, the complaints were escalating, and county officials were starting to pay attention to a pattern that couldn't be ignored any longer. So why now? Why is this particular complaint getting traction when so many others have quietly faded into the Santa Barbara breeze? The answer lies in a pattern, a repeated, documented string of minor violations, community frustration, and above all, silence from the Sussex camp. Because while Harry and Meghan are usually lightning fast to respond to media criticism or royal rebuttals, this time, nothing, not a word, not even a carefully worded PR statement.
Their own doors, and they never shut their own doors when they go places. And so there he was trying to find his friends. He must have a poor memory because, or not seen the friends for a long while because he knocked 3 or 4 doors. And in fact, one housekeeper.
That silence is beginning to speak louder than any Instagram caption or Netflix voiceover. Local authorities are no longer asking nicely. Doss Williams, known for standing up to tech billionaires and Hollywood moguls alike, has issued his final warning. And this isn't just about an unauthorized shoot or a zoning technicality, it's about accountability. For once, the Sussexes aren't facing royal protocol or palace press officers. They're dealing with county officials who don't care about titles or tabloid reputations. They care about compliance. But that silence? It's strategic and desperate. According to a former Sussex team member who spoke under condition of anonymity, the couple's legal team has been in crisis mode for weeks, frantically trying to assess their exposure before making any public statements. The usual playbook doesn't work here, the source explained. You can't spin zoning violations or claim media persecution when it's your own neighbors filing the complaints. The silence has also created a vacuum that's being filled by increasingly damaging speculation. Social media sleuths have begun analyzing satellite imagery, tracking permit applications, and even cross-referencing Netflix production schedules with reported activity at the Montecito estate. What they're finding isn't pretty, and it's all becoming public knowledge while Harry and Meghan remain conspicuously quiet. You probably think this is where the story ends. You're wrong. Here's where it gets really messy.
A royal picture taken on a doorbell phone. No, it was bizarre. And but what was strange about that, Matt, was of course that was the day when he was in court trying to get the government to pay for his.
This isn't just some bureaucratic slap on the wrist. It's the opening salvo in what could become a major legal and financial headache for Harry and Meghan. According to insiders, the formal land use compliance review isn't based on vague rumors or internet speculation. It's rooted in specific repeated complaints from their own neighbors, people with money, influence, and a vested interest in keeping Montecito quiet, clean, and regulation-abiding. The allegations? That the Sussex estate has been used for unpermitted commercial activities, ranging from promotional photo shoots to celebrity gatherings, and even filming sessions connected to their Netflix projects. Santa Barbara County zoning rules are clear. Residential areas are not to be used as private studios or event venues. If Harry and Meghan bypassed that system, knowingly or otherwise, they didn't just bend the rules, they broke them. And Doss Williams is not someone you want to test. But wait, there's a twist. This isn't the first time concerns have surfaced about how the Sussexes are using their estate. In fact, sources say quiet warnings were issued months ago, cautious, polite reminders that Montecito is not Hollywood. But those reminders allegedly went ignored. And now, the gloves are off. Williams publicly stated, "I won't warn you again," effectively ending the grace period. That's a rare move in a county that usually handles these matters discreetly.
He's going to have to pay £1.5 million, by the way, after losing this case. This is a very lengthy, very expensive case to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And he was in court that week and his lawyers were arguing that his life was at stake in the UK. And then here we have one doorbell photo. We understand there's other CCTV of him in the street at other doors.
What changed? According to one county official, it was the growing perception that the Sussexes believed they were above the rules. When that perception spreads in an elite, rule-driven community like Santa Barbara, things start to move quickly. Multiple reports suggest county investigators are now combing through public records, permit histories, and even satellite images to determine whether zoning violations occurred, and if so, how long they've been happening. This isn't just a fine and forget moment. It's potentially a pattern of misuse that could put their entire Montecito operation under scrutiny. The investigation has reportedly expanded to include a detailed audit of all major deliveries to the property over the past 18 months. County officials are particularly interested in a series of large equipment deliveries that coincided with known Netflix production periods. If these deliveries were for commercial filming equipment, lighting rigs, camera stabilizers, professional audio gear, it would constitute clear evidence of unpermitted commercial activity. Even more concerning for the Sussexes, investigators are now examining whether certain property modifications were made specifically to accommodate filming. Aerial photography analysis allegedly shows the installation of what appear to be permanent electrical connections in the garden areas, the kind typically used for professional lighting setups. If confirmed, this would suggest not just occasional rule bending, but systematic preparation for ongoing commercial use. And here's the kicker. This entire scandal is erupting just as the Sussex brand is already on shaky ground.
With the Archie and Lilibet on it, it's just strange. And I think, first of all, I mean, there's some interest. I don't know what Harry is trying to cover up with that hat. I don't know if it's male pattern baldness, but I think that whole thing was so contrived, as you said, Arthur. And I just think that Meghan is the biggest paparazzi in.
Their Spotify deal was abruptly terminated. Netflix is reportedly underwhelmed with the performance of their content. Meghan's American Riviera Orchard lifestyle brand, once touted as her personal Martha Stewart empire, is being mocked online as hollow and performative. And now, the very estate they promoted as a beacon of eco-conscious luxury might be violating environmental regulations. County officials are said to be reviewing their water usage during California's drought restrictions, along with landscaping changes that may have sidestepped local environmental approvals. Remember, Meghan and Harry positioned themselves as global advocates for climate responsibility, flying private jets while preaching carbon neutrality. If investigators find they've wasted water or violated eco-regulations, it won't just be a legal problem, it'll be a PR disaster. The timing couldn't be worse for their business interests. American Riviera Orchard was supposed to launch with a major product line this quarter, but sources suggest the legal uncertainty has spooked potential retail partners. Nobody wants to sign distribution deals with a company whose headquarters might be shut down for zoning violations, explained one industry insider. The environmental angle is particularly devastating because it strikes at the heart of their public persona.
If that's the case, well, it is as Samara said, it's just contrived, and that'd be interesting to know who took them. It wasn't bylines. I never saw anywhere. I never saw anybody photographer's name on any of the pictures.
It may well be one of their team with a smartphone, because smartphones
probably,
are great these days. But it really has been a week of of contrasting pictures, as you just pointed out there. We've got the doorbell.
Harry's upcoming memoir sequel was reportedly going to focus heavily on climate activism and sustainable living. But how do you publish a book about environmental responsibility when you're under investigation for water waste violations? Publishing industry sources suggest the project may be indefinitely delayed while legal issues are resolved. Meanwhile, their existing Netflix content is taking a hit in the court of public opinion. Viewers are now rewatching their documentaries with fresh eyes, looking for signs of the commercial activity that neighbors are complaining about. You think that's bad? Keep listening, because what comes next rips the eco-luxury illusion to shreds. Behind the Sussexes' handcrafted lemon baskets and staged orchard photo shoots lies a growing controversy over whether any of it was even legitimate. As county officials dig deeper, questions are mounting about the actual use of the Montecito estate. Was it truly a private residence? Or has it been quietly operating as a commercial filming location, one used to generate content for global streaming platforms and build Meghan's fledgling lifestyle empire? A former county planner, speaking under anonymity, claimed that the types of alterations seen on satellite images suggest intentional commercial preparation, from modified landscaping paths suitable for camera crews to temporary structures not registered with the permit office. But here's where it gets worse. If these modifications were made without disclosure, it could constitute zoning fraud. That's a felony-level allegation in some states, one that carries fines, mandatory property corrections, and public hearings that Meghan and Harry would absolutely dread. And then there's the hypocrisy.
I know, TikTok and Instagram star. What do you make of Instagram page so far? Is it a hit? Is it achieving what she wants, what her aims are for this page?
I was looking at it the other day for something I was going to write, and it's just quite sad, to be honest. I actually do think that when I look at that page and I look at some of the pathetic photos that
Meghan and Harry have branded themselves as warriors of climate action. Their speeches, their partnerships, their documentaries all push one consistent message: environmental integrity. But if current reports are accurate, the couple may have grossly overused water during one of California's most brutal drought periods. Investigators are now reviewing their water consumption records, looking for spikes that coincide with major landscaping work, private events, or filming activity. And the stakes here aren't just environmental, they're reputational, because California law is very strict when it comes to water conservation, especially in wealthy enclaves where abuse makes headlines. If Meghan and Harry are found to have violated those laws while publicly promoting eco-conscious values, the backlash will be merciless. They won't just lose credibility, they'll lose one of the last pillars holding up their personal brand. As one environmental watchdog group stated, they've spoken at length about global responsibility. Let's see if that includes following basic state laws. The water usage investigation has uncovered some particularly damaging details. Preliminary reports suggest the estate's consumption spiked by over 300% during certain months, coinciding exactly with periods when neighbors reported increased activity and professional vehicles on the property. For comparison, similar-sized estates in the area maintained relatively stable usage even during the peak of landscaping season. Even more explosive, sources suggest that some of the water was used for aesthetic purposes that directly violated drought restrictions. While residents across California were letting their lawns die and limiting shower time, the Sussex estate allegedly maintained lush, camera-ready gardens that required intensive irrigation. If proven, this wouldn't just be a legal violation, it would be a stunning display of privilege and hypocrisy that could permanently damage their environmental advocacy credentials. But hold up, because this is where it gets insane.
and she's trying to curate this weird cheapo image, in my opinion. It makes me think you left all of that. You left the iconic British royal family so that you could have an Instagram page and post a couple of photos of you picking lemons in an orchard. It really doesn't weigh up, but I think it is where Meghan is most comfortable.
A local tipster claims that not only were Harry and Meghan warned about these potential violations months ago, they allegedly tried to get ahead of the issue by staging preemptive PR stunts. Remember those glossy photos of Meghan in the orchard? The baskets of freshly picked produce? According to a former Sussex staffer, those scenes were heavily curated and not representative of actual daily use. In fact, one of the gardens shown prominently in Meghan's branding material was allegedly rented for the shoot. If true, this would mean the public image of the Montecito estate wasn't just embellished, it was manufactured. Worse, it opens the door to a legal gray area involving false advertising and misrepresentation of property assets in business promotion. And while California law is lenient on personal branding, it draws a hard line when residential property is used for commercial gain without disclosure. The revelation about the rented garden equipment has sent shockwaves through the local community. Multiple vendors have now come forward, confirming they provided temporary props, staging materials, and even fake produce for various Sussex photo shoots. One florist described delivering hundreds of dollars worth of picture-perfect vegetables that were never intended for actual consumption, just for photographs. This manufactured authenticity extends beyond just produce. Investigation into their social media content has revealed a pattern of borrowed or rented items being presented as personal possessions. The artisanal pottery featured in Meghan's lifestyle posts, rented from a local studio, the vintage farming tools displayed in their garden shots, props from a nearby antique dealer who specializes in movie and television productions. The implications go far beyond simple misrepresentation. If the Sussexes have been systematically creating false impressions about their lifestyle to support commercial ventures, they could face consumer fraud allegations. Here's where everything hits a boiling point.
She's American, and that's the way they work in America. You know, they think that's the next big deal, and perhaps she's got that worked out already.
I mentioned there about popularity. There was, just before we sat down, there was a YouGov poll that was released on royal family favourability.
Because this isn't just about zoning violations or environmental hypocrisy anymore, it's about whether the entire Sussex narrative is beginning to collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. Insiders close to Santa Barbara's Board of Supervisors say this investigation may only be the beginning. What started as a land use review could now trigger a broader audit of the Sussexes' media activities, property alterations, and business dealings connected to their Montecito estate. In plain terms, if Meghan and Harry use the property as a base of operations for their Netflix and Spotify productions without declaring it as such, they could be liable for misclassifying property use under state and federal law. That carries financial penalties, possible clawbacks on tax claims, and mandatory corrective filings. Worse yet, these kinds of findings don't stay private. If made official, they're public record. Every fine, every violation, every permit filed late or ignored, it'll all be out there. But the legal avalanche is already gaining momentum beyond just local zoning issues. Tax authorities are reportedly taking interest in whether the couple properly declared the commercial use of their residence. If the property was generating income through filming, events, or content creation, it should have been reported differently on their tax returns. The potential for tax fraud allegations adds a federal dimension to what started as a local compliance issue. Employment law complications are also emerging. If the estate was operating as a de facto business location, questions arise about worker safety, insurance coverage, and labor law compliance for all the crew members, caterers, and other service providers who worked on the property. California has some of the strictest workplace safety requirements in the country, and operating an unlicensed commercial venue could expose the Sussexes to significant liability. The insurance implications alone could be financially devastating. Most homeowners' policies explicitly exclude coverage for commercial activities. But the legal tension is only part of the unraveling. Social media is now ablaze with the scandal.
So, I think one of the greatest pull factors of the royal family is the mystery behind it all. The fact that people don't know a lot of what goes on behind closed doors. And that's where Meghan's got it all wrong, because she's broadcast her entire life out to us, and we've actually judged it. And we've said that's kind of bland and boring and actually quite sad, to be honest.
And the public isn't holding back. Hashtags like #ZoningRoyals, #Montecito mess, and #Harry the landlord are trending across platforms. Even longtime fans are beginning to question the couple's integrity. They sold us this image of ethical living and quiet domestic bliss, wrote one former supporter on X. Now it looks like it was all fake. Royal commentators across the UK are pouncing on the headlines, gleefully pointing out the irony that the couple who fled Britain to escape scrutiny is now facing it in California from their own neighbors. Even American news outlets, once more cautious in their coverage, are beginning to frame the Montecito mansion as a symbol of Sussex-style hypocrisy, luxury cloaked in activism, privacy claimed but never practiced. The optics are brutal. Drone footage shows high fences and security patrols, while rumors swirl about production crews slipping in through side gates. The shift in public perception has been swift and merciless. Fan sites that once defended every Sussex decision are now filled with doubt and criticism. Comment sections that used to rally against media attacks are now dominated by former supporters expressing disappointment and betrayal. The couple's carefully cultivated image of authentic, down-to-earth celebrities living simple lives has been replaced by a perception of calculated deception and entitled rule-breaking. International media coverage has been particularly damaging. British tabloids are having a field day with headlines like Harry's Hollywood hypocrisy and Meghan's Montecito meltdown. But more significantly, mainstream American outlets that previously treated the couple with kid gloves are now asking harder questions. The narrative is shifting from misunderstood royals seeking privacy to privileged celebrities who think rules don't apply to them. The damage extends beyond just public opinion. Industry insiders report that the scandal is affecting the couple's ability to secure future deals.
So I don't always like pitting the Duchess of Sussex against the Princess of Wales. It's not always helpful, but Catherine's top. Okay, Catherine and William are always top of this poll. This week, Princess of Wales has been very visible. We had the video. I'm calling it Kate Outdoors, by the way. Woman for all seasons. But this is this video talking about...
And just when you think it can't get worse, enter Doss Williams again. According to a senior staff member, Williams has now received formal pressure from multiple homeowners associations demanding action. This isn't personal, the staffer said. It's about the rules applying equally to everyone. Behind closed doors, several of Montecito's most powerful residents have reportedly expressed frustration that the Sussexes are using their fame to sidestep regulations that everyone else follows. One source described it this way: "They came here for privacy, and now we're all dealing with their circus." The mood has shifted. No more celebrity awe, no more royal deference, just a well-connected, wealthy community that wants peace restored and is prepared to use every legal channel to make that happen. That's the part Harry and Meghan didn't see coming. Because you can dodge British tabloids, you can bypass Hollywood critics, but you can't ignore your own neighbors when they go to the county board. The neighborhood revolt has taken on a life of its own. What started as individual complaints has evolved into a coordinated effort by multiple homeowners associations. Legal experts suggest this kind of organized community pressure significantly increases the likelihood of serious enforcement action. When wealthy, influential residents band together to demand compliance, local officials tend to listen. The Sussexes have apparently tried to smooth things over through private meetings and conciliatory gestures, but sources suggest these efforts have backfired. They seem to think they could charm their way out of it, reported one neighbor who attended a community meeting. But people here aren't starstruck. They're angry, and they want accountability. The community backlash has extended beyond just the immediate neighbors. Local businesses that initially welcomed the high-profile residents are now expressing frustration with the disruption and negative attention. So here we are. The illusion has cracked, the neighbors have spoken, and the county has acted. What was once a gleaming symbol of the Sussexes' so-called freedom, their Montecito hideaway, is now at the center of a formal investigation that threatens to unravel the very image they've worked so hard to control. But this time, they don't have Buckingham Palace to shield them or royal advisors to manage the damage. They're on their own, and in California, when you're flagged for zoning violations and misuse of residential property, there's no working member of the royal family card to play. You face fines, you face restrictions, and if the violations are bad enough, you face lawsuits. Legal experts have made it clear. Should investigators determine that the estate was knowingly used for commercial purposes without the proper permits, Meghan and Harry could be liable for tens of thousands in penalties, not to mention forced suspension of any current or future business activity conducted on site. The potential financial exposure extends far beyond just county fines. If tax irregularities are discovered, the penalties could reach into the hundreds of thousands. If environmental violations are confirmed, remediation costs could be enormous. If insurance claims are denied due to undisclosed commercial activity, the couple could face millions in uncovered liabilities. But perhaps most critically, the reputational damage may be irreversible. Once trust is broken with the public, it's extraordinarily difficult to rebuild, especially when the broken trust involves core values like environmental responsibility and authentic living that formed the foundation of their post-royal brand. That could include filming, photo shoots, product production, and yes, even events tied to American Riviera Orchard. In short, their brand may be bigger than ever, but their legal footing has never looked shakier. And yet, perhaps the most damaging blow isn't coming from the courts, it's coming from public opinion. Because for years, Meghan and Harry insisted they were victims of unfair scrutiny, that the press, the monarchy, the public had all failed to understand their need for a quieter, more authentic life. But how does that narrative hold up when your private estate becomes a production set? How do you justify water violations while advocating for climate change? This is the moment when the contradictions become too obvious to ignore. The public, the media, and now their own neighbors see it clearly. The Montecito dream wasn't about privacy. It was about control. Control of the narrative, of the environment, of the brand. But the story has now escaped them. And if they don't act fast, this scandal could define the next chapter of their post-royal lives. Because unlike the firm or the tabloids, Santa Barbara County doesn't play the fame game. It plays by the book. The revelation that their authentic life was largely manufactured for public consumption has particularly stung their core supporters. The organic gardens, the simple family moments, the commitment to sustainable living. If these were all staged for commercial purposes, what was real? This question is now driving much of the public conversation, and the Sussexes have no good answer. Their silence in the face of these allegations is being interpreted as admission of guilt. In the age of social media, not responding is often seen as confirmation. The couple that once controlled every aspect of their public narrative now finds themselves unable to manage the story as spiraling out of their control. So what happens now? That's the million-dollar question. Will the Sussexes quietly pay the fines and retreat further behind their gates? Will they issue a carefully scripted statement blaming miscommunication and clerical errors? Or will they dig in, lawyer up, and turn this into yet another high-profile showdown? Insiders say they're already working behind the scenes to resolve the situation privately, but the damage may already be done. Because once the public starts asking, were they ever honest about any of this? It's almost impossible to put the genie back in the bottle, especially when that bottle has your brand name printed on the label. The legal strategy appears to be damage control and quiet settlement, but that approach may no longer be viable. With multiple agencies now involved and public attention intensifying, a private resolution seems increasingly unlikely. The couple may be forced into the public accountability they've spent years trying to avoid. Industry experts suggest the Sussex brand may never recover from this particular scandal because it strikes at the heart of their carefully constructed image. Unlike previous controversies that could be blamed on media bias or royal family dynamics, this one involves their own choices, their own neighbors, and their own local government. There's no external villain to blame, no institution to position themselves against. The final takeaway? Meghan and Harry might have left the palace behind, but they've walked into something even more dangerous, the real world. The Montecito dream is over. The question now is whether the Sussex brand can survive the nightmare that's taken its place. And based on the evidence mounting daily, the answer is looking increasingly bleak. Because when you build your entire identity on authenticity and environmental responsibility, getting caught faking both isn't just a public relations problem, it's an existential crisis. The investigation continues. The neighbors remain angry, the county isn't backing down, and Meghan and Harry, they're still not talking. But their silence is saying everything the public needs to know about the gap between the Sussex image and the Sussex reality. And that gap may be too wide to ever bridge again. A world where laws exist, where privacy is earned, not sold, and where no amount of curated content can save you from a scandal that starts with a zoning violation and ends with a total collapse of public trust.